Hello and welcome to another edition of Choose the Challenge. I am LaWanna Bradford, and I want to thank all of you who are joining us on E360 TV. Welcome back, and to our streaming folks on Facebook and LinkedIn, welcome. Choose the Challenge is a platform designed to really push the envelope, to get us thinking about those systems, those institutions, those mindsets, the things that are oppressing us and keeping us from elevating to the best and highest version of ourselves. This show is no stranger to challenging and uncomfortable conversations. And we're going to have one of those conversations today. I am real excited to have a gentleman who I recently met and was just blown away with our backstage conversation when he shared with me some details of his story. And his name is Jose Angel Pereira Ruimwyk. And I hope I got the last part right. And he is, one of the things he says is never give up, never lose faith. He is a speaker, he's a teacher, he is an influencer. But his journey started in the corporate sector. Over 35 years as an executive, he is a former executive in the petroleum industry. In his latter years was as the CEO of Citgo. He is known as the Citgo Six, and we'll talk a little bit about what that term means and why he is so passionate about this experience that he's had. And we know in life, sometimes life just smacks us down, but it's how we get up, how we translate that lived experience into something powerful and transformative. And before I go into a lot of detail, I want to bring Jose on stage, and we're going to talk about the meaning of the numbers 1,775. Welcome, Jose. How's it going?
Thank you, LaWanna. Thank you for your audience, and thank you. This is a wonderful lady that I met the other day in an event. It was kind of funny because she was speaking before me. By the way, it was funny because I was going to speak after her, and when I saw her story, I said, "Wow, she's so amazing!" But she's talking exactly the same thing that I'm talking. So when she contacted me, I said to her, "I was going to contact you also because I was in shock what you were saying, So we did a great connection about these 1,775 days was the days that I was in captivity. We stayed almost 5 years as hostage in a foreign country.
Okay, let's pause right there. Ladies and gentlemen,
number.
did you hear what he said? 1,775 days as a hostage in Venezuela. Let's just dig deep. How on earth did that happen? You're an American citizen. You're an executive of a major petroleum company. What happened?
Well, Citgo Petroleum is an American company, but it belongs to PDVSA, that is the national oil company of Venezuela. I started my career in PDVSA. I am dual citizen, and I was born in Venezuela. By the way, I'm a third generation of an oil and gas worker, because Venezuela, to the audience that doesn't know, at some point was the fifth economy in the oil production in the world. So 30, 40 years ago was bigger than Saudi Arabia. But today, because of all this communist regime that is there, has become a mess. But at some point, PDVSA was the fifth company of the world. My grandfather, my father, my mother, my grandmother, all my family work in the oil and gas. So I have like 100 years in oil and gas in my family. So I began my career in what? Oil and gas. I began my career in oil and gas having 21 years.
Right?
Yeah, I don't have blood. I have oil in my blood, So I began my career there back in 1985, and I did a long career in PDVSA, and at some point I came here to the U.S. in an international assignment and finalized my career in Citgo, that is the American affiliated, and at the end I became to be the CEO of that company. So in the end of my career, I was in the pinnacle, in the top of the top. So we were called to a last minute meeting in Caracas. That was November 2017. If you Google the date, is 21 of November, was 1 week before Thanksgiving. Um, we went to a call. I received a call. It was a Saturday. I was in a movie with my wife. We are movie lovers. We were I believe we were seeing Superman, something like that. I am a big Marvel fan. So we were in a looking Superman, something like that. I received a phone call. Hey, you have to come tomorrow. There's an urgent meeting here in Caracas. To tell you the truth, I didn't see nothing wrong. Even that there was some turbulence between the relations between the U.S. and Venezuela. In that moment, was in office Trump. Trump was having a lot of dispute with this guy because they wanted to have a change of the regime because this regime is illegitimate. So they were forcing some situations like it has been happening with Russia, with Ukraine. Something very similar. Sanctions, oil ban, all this stuff. We never thought that we would come in the middle of that because I was not a politician. I was a businessman. We flew with my 5 top executives to this meeting, and it became to be a settlement because they wanted, at that moment, the relation with Venezuela was so bad, they didn't have nothing where to grab. So they cherry picked us, invited to that meeting, and then in the middle of the meeting, boom, they came for us. So when I saw that, to tell you the truth, I thought that was a mistake because I said, hey, this is something wrong. I didn't know exactly what was going on. Well, the truth of the matter is that the situation where we realized where we were and what was going on, we said, oh, there is something wrong going here. And the unfortunate situation for us is that the relation became so bad that some months later, the U.S. ambassador was expelled. Up to today, in Venezuela, there is no U.S. ambassador. That was expelled because of our case. So it became really ugly. It became really ugly, and the thing were from bad to worse. And we were in the middle of that situation. Well, the long story short, that we were in that carousel of things, and we stayed 1,775 days because after back and forward with the relation, then back and forward, there was then the change of the administration. When came the new administration, they kind of switched the way they began to handle it. They created like an office to treat these cases, and there was kind of behind the scene negotiation. And the long story short is that we came through a prisoner swap of the 2 nephews of that guy in Venezuela. So there were 2 nephews of him here in the U.S. convicted because there were some Lord drug dealers. And, well, we were traded like in the movies in a Caribbean island, in an island called San Vicente and Grenadines. So we were landed in that island, and then they did a swap there. And, well, we came back in October 1st last year. That's the long story short.
Yeah, and we're gonna dig a little deeper in that. I mean, to sit here and hear it, like you said, we watch it in the movies, we may see it on TV, but that's not our reality, right? But for you, almost 5 years, I mean, literally just shy of 5 years,
yeah,
you were in captivity.
Yeah.
You went over, like you said, you weren't going as a diplomat, as a politician. You were going as a representative of your company to hold a meeting, and you didn't come home for 5 years.
I told my wife, I told my wife that because I was supposed to go to the meeting and come back the other day because it was Thanksgiving. I had my sons coming from Thanksgiving. So I told my wife, I'm going to be tomorrow here, no problem. Tomorrow never happened,
Yeah, but that was the longest overnight stay, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to those that are watching, this is something, and we're going to, Jose and I are going to get into this, but this is something that is of grave concern because there are still U.S. hostages that are out there. We know the recent case with Brittany Grimer and being held in Russia. And we'll talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in the advocacy
Yeah.
that you're doing. And the reason why I felt it was so important, Jose, to have you on this show is to make people aware, because I think the more we have awareness, the more we can have allyship, more voices elevated to help change the policies and to protect, as our citizens as they travel abroad. I'd like to show a video that you shared with me, if we may, and then I'd like to get into the heart of the story, if that's okay.
The food and the medicine. At some point, I began to smuggle letters because I needed to communicate to my wife. So I took the risk. Maybe I could have died, but I took the risk. I began to smuggle letters in the trash cans, and that was effective because I sent her a letter, and like 2 or 3 days later, I received a letter from my wife replying me, and we began to do it like that, back and forth with writing, and it began to be a routine. Every 3 days we were writing. We began to develop like a secret code. That secret code was in the case they discovered the letters, so it became like a kind of a Anna Frank diary that we did. So it became really my memoir. So when I came back, my wife has compiled 1,000 letters, so she had put it in Word. So when I decided to go back to the letters and compile them, that's the way I wrote my book. So you will see and feel in the book the process I was going through, all why I was suffering in the moment, because you will see it there. And you will see also how it will be evolving in time, because at some point we decided to go to a survival mode. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because it's, when we have our freedom, very often we take it for granted. We take the liberties that we have for granted, and yours was suddenly stripped away, and you were contained. And there's the ugly side of that containment. You mentioned to me that from food to medicine, certain things weren't available to you. So can you just unpackage that, as comfortable as you are, for our audience, to just give us a picture of what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, our situation when we arrived there was really, really terrible. We were caught by that country, because this is something that I'm going to talk later on about how these countries are making copy paste between them. So they emulated what the Iranian government does. There has a famous Iranian Revolutionary Guard. There is IRGC. Well, Venezuela had a copy that is called the DGCIM. Well, that police was the one that is the counterintelligence military police. Something blow your mind. These guys are a lot of sociopaths. So it's the worst that you can imagine. Where these guys we were there, and they put us with some military political prisoner. We were with generals, colonels, captains, a lot of military that were against the government, that were there in the prison. So we were like in a third floor basement. There was no window, no nothing. There was the lights all the day turned off, no watches, no nothing. We lost the sense of the time. That situation lasted like 10 months. And the food was terrible. I say terrible is terrible. At some point, I stayed like 2 or 3 days without eating, because I couldn't eat that. It was rotten. It was bad. I lost almost 100 pounds. Almost 100 pounds. So we were literally in the border to die. So the pressure began to do so bad in our family. We learned after that they were really making a lot of pressure here in the U.S. government. This is something that I'm going to talk about, how these cases become serious because it's high politics. So they were using the United Nations because there was no U.S. ambassador. So they sent a commission of the U.S. The UN called the Arbitrary Detention UN Commission. They flew to Venezuela, and they saw us. They talked with us, And they saw how we were. They said, these guys are going to die. So at some point, they forced that we were allowed to have food and medicine because at that point, that was 2018, the situation in Venezuela was really bad because all the sanctions and all the oil embargo, the economy collapsed. So there was no food, no medicine. So one of my sons had to flew to Colombia. He moved to Colombia to assist me from Colombia. So he was providing me food that he was buying in Bogota and sending to Caracas. It was a total logistic. And so, okay, and at that point, when we began to receive those food, there was containers that we send out prepared food. At some point I said I need to communicate with my wife, so I began to smuggle letters. At some point I found how to with a piece of paper. I began to write letters and I began to smuggle in the and it worked. It worked. My wife, when she received the first letter, she got scared when she saw that what is going on there. So the guy took a photo and sent it to her, and she had it in her phone. Said she could read it. Said she answered me, and that began to do like a routine. We begin to do it like every 2 or 3 days, and he began to do a routine, and we did it almost 3 years. We did that almost 3 years. So when I came back, it was kind of funny because my wife has this bunch of letters. And I said, wow, you have all these letters. So she had not she had only compiled it. She put it in Word. So she already had it in Word. So that's why for me it was much more easy to write a book because it was there, it was there. What I had to do, put in the format, but the essence of the book is the letters, is the memoir of. And let me tell you, LaWanna, for me was kind of today still is difficult. Every time I had, and when I was editing, going back to some events, is difficult. Reading what I was saying in that moment because was exactly what I was feeling in that moment. So that's gonna be the part of my soul that I put there. So yeah, but it was a terrible situation.
And I think, as you said, I can't even imagine that journey. But what your wife did was just genius, to have that and to compile it, because it captured the raw emotions as they were happening. It's one thing like after the fact, and we go back and we're trying to remember, we're trying to recall. It would be a very different book. It would still be true, but this is you raw in the moment, and she captured everything and saved
For me, it
everything.
was a blessing. It was a blessing. Let me tell you, when I came back, one of these wonderful foundations that advocate for the hosted community. One of these wonderful foundation, I'm going to name it here, Hosted USA. They have a wonderful program to support you to navigate all these situations. One of the director of the foundation, he's a very recognized writer today, and he was um, hosted in the Somali. He was kidnapped by the Somalian pirates. He stayed kidnapped during 3 years, and he wrote his book after 3 years because he had to go back to his case, revisit all this stuff. So when he knew that I have already, I remember 1 month, barely 1 month after I came, he knew about my letters because I told him, because he was kind of advising me how to do my book. And he told me, Jose, you are so blessed. I will have that opportunity to do what you did. I have the letters. So that guy was always telling me, God, you're so blessed. And I was blessed because even in the nightmare of the situation, the letters were there. So it was different if I had to begin to remember the situation
Yes.
that was raw. It was exactly what I was feeling in that moment. Yeah.
And I liked how you compared it to, the Diary of Anne Frank. I mean, we have this account of this young girl because she wrote it in the moment, right? And somehow it was preserved for generations to learn from. And I look forward to reading your book, and I just think of how powerful it's going to be. It's a transformative story, for generations to come. I mean, it could possibly be one of those books that are studied in high school and universities, and just in the political legal setting. How do we handle and manage hostage situations and those crises? I'd like to talk about bringing our families home in that organization, and how are you involved with them, and what do you hope to achieve in your current role?
Well, let me tell you, it's so impressive. The organization, I believe that one day it's going to have to be done a movie of them. That organization was began by our kids. The kids of our families. I'm talking daughters, sons, uncles, aunts, friends. So when our situation happened, we were not aware that the situation was happening with other Americans. I thought that our case was unique. I was not aware that this situation was never in my life I could imagine this happening to another person. So at some point in May of 2022, no, maybe April, one day, one of the guys that was with me, we're gonna tell later why we were called the single six. We were six, okay. But one of the guys that was with me, he come to me because when I begin to smuggle letter, I begin to smuggle letter to me and to them. At some point, they begin to put letter with me, so I begin to be like a carrier, sending letters out. So every time I received the food, everybody was waiting their letter. Okay, this is true. So he was sending letter to everybody. Well, he was receiving letters from his daughter, and at some point, his daughter told him that he was meeting with another family members of another cases, and they decided to put together and create a organization called the Bringer Family Home Campaign. That's the way it came. So they decided to create it in May 2022, and 2 months after, they decided to unveil a mural on Washington with our faces. So today my face is in Washington with another 19 faces. By the way, Brittany Griner is there with us because she's part of our campaign today. So it became like something our kids. So what was a bunch of kids doing things because they love their fathers, and they did something that a lot of common sense. And Alexandra, that is the name of the lady, Alexandra, she was so key. Let me tell you, when I came back, when I met her in person, I give her a hug. I said, "Oh, you're my hero," and she told me, "No, you are my hero." So we are kind of commonly heroes, But she is a hero because she was literally who put the idea together, and she brought all the families, and they did a common cause, and that was a powerful message. All the families together, and there's where I realized when I came back that there were people in Russia, in Iran, in China, in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, in Syria, in Venezuela, and Cuba, wherever. So there's where I begin to get involved, because when 1 month after I came in October. In November, I told my wife I had to go to the mural. I had to take a photo with my friends.
Yeah.
What's funny because one of the family members, she had his family is a guy called Paul Rusesabagina. He's the guy from the Hotel Rwanda. Have you seen the movie Hotel Rwanda?
Yes.
He's the real Hotel Rwanda guy. He was in Rwanda 6 years in prison. So this lady was part of his campaign, and she's a kind of a communication strategist. And we got connected. And today she's working with me. By the way, she lives in Maui, and today she's working with the rescue of Maui. She's something crazy, amazing. Well, we got connected. And so when I told her, hey, I'm going to go to Washington, well, I was planning to take some photo with my wife. And when I arrived there, it was all the press, congressmen. It was a bunch of people. I said, what is this? Because I didn't realize that I was the first former hostage that has gone there. because I was a crazy guy that always thinking what I'm gonna do when I come back. So I was always thinking on that. So I decided, and that's why I said, okay, I had to continue doing this. So I begin to meet the families, I begin to meet with the wife, the parents. I begin to create a big community, and today we are connected. Today, not only here in the U.S., now I'm connected to the other hosts that are in other countries. Next month, I'm invited to the UN General Assembly. There's going to be an act. They're going to come people from UK, Australia, Belgium, French, Philippines, a lot of countries that have hosts. We're going to meet next month in New York in a big event that's going to be, because this is like, I always say, this is like the family you never wanted to be, but at the end you become part of it. So I'm part of that family
Exactly.
today. Today, that's
Yeah, your story is remarkable. And like you said, while you were captive, you were always wondering, okay, what's, if I get out of this, right, what's next? And I'm amazed sometimes of our lived experiences. I'm a woman of faith. So how God will
oh yeah.
take all the ash and trash, the negative, and he shifts it around and is able to use it not only for our good, but for others. So you are not the man who you were November 21st,
No,
2017.
definitely. No,
Absolutely,
not at
absolutely not.
all. Not at all.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I
you're
was not a
Superman.
religious guy.
You're Superman. You were able to withstand the kryptonite.
Well, let me tell you something. I always say that I'm not a Superman. No, no. I'm a regular guy that went through a situation that found a way to manage it. But let me tell you, it's not that I went through a lot of things. I went to a trauma center, LaWanna. I stayed 1 week in a big trauma center here in the US, one of the biggest trauma center here. I have been in therapies because this is a process. The only thing is that I decided to manage my process helping others. So this is a way I decided to move on. So
So you reaching out and helping others and sharing your story and connecting with families has been very cathartic for you. But we don't want to discount. Yeah, there is trauma, longstanding trauma, and I salute you for reaching out and getting the support that you need. And to those of you who are watching, whether you were in a captive situation, anything that's creating a sense of bondage and darkness in your life,
yeah.
if you need assistance, if you need someone to guide you out, please reach out to those who can help you. Those professionals who are there to help you navigate, because it's like you said, that's you weren't trained. How do I recover from this? That's like you said, that's an experience no one wants to have, but it is your experience, and it's that of so many others. And until talking to you, I didn't know how many. I think you said there are over 60 something
Are
Americans
60,
that are
yes. Yeah, we're
that's
having a
awesome.
campaign, 60 persons all over the world. We created a second mural here in Houston. In July 4th, we unveiled it. Today, there are 15 faces because some families, for some reason that I respect, decide to be more discreet. So they don't want to
Mhm.
have too much press. They don't want to be showing the faces of their family. They have some reason, but some families decided to be more, more active. This is something that I always recommend the people. You have to go to the press. Today there are wonderful journalists that they are connected to our community, that they understand and that they are really supportive. So you can see all over the media. There are some journal. By the way, there are a journalist, a very famous journalist, that he was a former host himself. So we have some kind of connection today that anything that happened, uh, immediately you can call them, and they are aware. The situation today, even is not perfect, is improved a little. They're more awareness.
And I think that's so key, is by having these shared experiences and bringing the conversation to the table. Not only will we change the narrative, but the risk potential mitigate some of the risks that are out there for not only U.S. citizens, but as you said, there are other countries who are experiencing the same thing with their citizens. Um, I want to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to talk about the family side
Oh, yeah,
of
important, muy important.
be right back.
Mhm.
I wanted to say thank you to our sponsor, Real Health, which is really enthusiastic about life with Mary Ellen Siganovich. And one of the things that she does is she works with individuals with trauma and overcoming those and being empowered in spite of the experience. So we thank her for sponsoring this episode. I want to talk a little bit about your family. I mean, you have an amazing family from what you've shared. Your wife. So we think about the hostage, but there's the other side of the coin. How
Well,
did she survive? How was she able to keep going and to keep herself hopeful during that time?
let me tell you, it's so important what you're saying that my wife, I encourage her, and she's today writing her own story. She's writing her own book about the other side of the story because I told her, Mervis, you have to do this. But Mervis is something amazing. To tell you the truth, today I still don't know how she did it. When this happened to me, because I was planning to get retired, and I'm plan guy, so I decided, okay, what I'm gonna do before I retire to be prepared. So we opened a small bakery, a franchise, and she had only 1 month that we had opened it. 1 month, 1 month. And when this happened, she was like, okay, what I do? So she continued, and she told me that for her was a blessing having the store because that keep her awaking in the morning, going to attend people, smile, put a face, and move on. And let me tell you, LaWanna, I survived because of her. She took care of me during all this time. When I say take care, was taking care because if she didn't send money for the food or send money for this, and my other son that worked with her, I would have died. So literally, I survived because of her. So I have a story I'm gonna tell here because we always had the illusion because she loved when we were lived in Venezuela. His dad, that worked also in the oil and gas, he always wanted to come to the Rose Parade in Pasadena. That was his illusion. He never made it. He never made it because he passed away. And what? So when we came here to the U.S., we always were thinking to go to the Rose Parade, and we never made it because I always was busy, never had time. Well, during these 5 years, I realized that she every year she bought the tickets, and when come December, she put it and sold the ticket, and then next year did it again and did it again and did it again, and in the fifth time, I came back. I came back, and I came back in October. She had the tickets, and you know what? January 1st, we were in Pasadena in the Rose Parade. So when we went to the Rose Parade, the other day I went to the Hall of Fame, and and the Walk of Fame, and then we were in the Chinese theater when they do the Oscars. I have a photo. I gave it. I bought an Oscar and I gave it to her. I said, "You are winning the Oscar of the resilience." For me, she is so resilient. What she did. I cannot
Yes.
imagine how she did it. So that's why I encourage her. She has to write her book because her book is the other coin, is the other side of
Yes.
tragedy. The suffering of the family is immense. is unimaginable. It's not only the physical, it's the psychological, it's the soul, it's financially, it's like a, I say, it's like a putting in a bomb in the middle and everything explodes. It's terrible what the families go through this. And this is something that I have learning, contacting now that I know all these family, that I see all the suffering. There are families, LaWanna, there is a family, I'm not going to name it, but for respect, for confidence, his son is disappearing in one of these countries, has like 12 years. Can you imagine the suffering of the family that they even don't know if his relative is live or dead? Can you imagine
No,
that suffering? So
no. Like I said, I'm hearing it, and no, I can't. I can't. It would be foolish of me to say, "Oh yes, I can." I get what you're saying. I don't. And like you said, both you and your wife, I believe, as we go through our life journey, there's something that is equipping us for those hard times. We don't know it at the time because we're just living our lives. But you use the term resilient to describe your wife. And I can also say for you, there was something that you were able to hold on to believe against all odds that somehow you were going to be reunited. I mean, I think that's such a beautiful story. I know he wants to go to the Rose Parade. I'm buying these tickets. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
she keep doing it every year. Every year she was buying it and rebuying it and rebuying it, and we went to the Rose Parade. Let me tell you, LaWanna, you said something so incredible. Okay, by the way, this is something that I'm going to say in my book, because when I revisited, because during that time I had chance to revisit my life, and I begin to see a lot of events that happened in my life previous to this event that it was like God preparing me for that. He was doing it. I truly believe today that he was preparing me for that event. And he was preparing me for that and for the events that are to come. So today I can see it. I can clearly see it. You know, this weekend, the pastor of my church, I told him, "Hey, I cannot stand it. You always are so. I don't know how to say it. He's so accurate when every time he talks. He was talking about the plan of God. He was saying that God always has a master plan for us. What he he doesn't show how you're going to get there. Because he said, can you imagine God revealing to Moses or to David or to
Yeah.
Isaac or to Jesus what was going to go to get there? They were not accepted. So he will never reveal what is the way he's going to put you there. But he has a plan for you. I truly believe in that. I truly believe today in that. That there are signs of. If you go to my LinkedIn, I put a post like 2 or 3 days ago about if you believe in fatalities in life. So go back to my post. I say something there that is going to be like a hint of things that are going to say in my book. But because it's not. It's not. There are things that God. You don't see those signs, but those signs are there.
Yeah.
So when you begin to go deep dive on that, they have been always been there, but you don't see it. You don't see them.
No, you don't. And it's like you said, it's like all of that for a time such as this. You know, you went through the fire in order to be perfected, in order
Correct.
to
Totally
do
correct.
his will. I mean, think about you were touching lives before, you know, as an executive. Now look at the millions and perhaps billions who are going to be transformed because of this story, especially when that book comes out. And I believe there's going to be a movie. And people like me who didn't know the the level of tragedy that's out there when it comes to hostage situations. I know I'm going to be that mouthpiece, be that advocate, letting people know as much as I can. And I think I told you I shared with your story with my dad, and
Oh yeah.
he's 93, And when he was in the Korean War, he was over the prisoner of war camp in Jeju-do in Korea. I mean, that was his role. He was over the prisoners. But the difference is you weren't in the military. You weren't in government. You were an American citizen with a nice executive job, with a loving family, just going to do your daily job, expecting to come back home the next day and get ready for this amazing Thanksgiving. And God said, nah, I need you to pause for a minute.
And let me tell you, the Thanksgiving became an event during those 5 years, LaWanna. You cannot imagine. Every Thanksgiving, there was a milestone going bad for us. Every Thanksgiving was happening something bad to us. Every Thanksgiving. It became like and I said, I'm not gonna accept this. And this year, the Thanksgiving was wonderful. I decided, because if I was other person, my mind, I said Thanksgiving is something negative for me. I never accepted that. I said this is something that is happening because it's a kind of it's like a roadblock, that you have to pass that roadblock. So I never saw it something negative, because this is another thing. In any tragedy, you have the positive mindset is something that is gonna really help. In my case, I have been always positive. I have been a guy super positive all my life. There's a guy in LinkedIn, he's called Mr. Positive. I said, I think I'm a little bit more positive than you.
Now, you have a book that's coming out, and I believe the title is From Hero to Villain, The True Story of the Citgo Six. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
When can we expect to see that?
Okay, in 1 week at the end of this month, it's going to begin a pre-campaign of the pre-market. It's going to be first pre-marketed because they want to do like a pre-market, and it's going to be done in English and in Spanish because I have a big Spanish audience, because our case has, beside that case, our case, because all these political implications become to be the most relevant case in the Venezuelan politics of the last 10 years. When the ambassador Roger Carson went to the first time to visit us, to rescue us, was the first time that a U.S. officer visited Venezuela in 5 years. So literally, it was like a big deal in the Venezuelan politics. So there are a lot of expectation in the Venezuelan side about our book. So this is going to be like a kind of two campaigning, the part in English and the part in Spanish. But it's going to be in 1 week. We're going to be it's going to be already the campaign outside, and the book is going to be released like in 2 months maybe.
I
do it for October. I'm gonna be the first year. My first anniversary is gonna be in October, so it's gonna be in October.
So what I'm going to do is I want you to. We're almost out of time, and this has been just an amazing interview. I want you to tell the audience a couple things. Number one, how they'll be able to get the book once it's ready, once it's released. And how can, if anyone wants to be involved, how can they be involved in this effort in promoting awareness? But number three, if they want to partner with you and have you come and do speaking engagements and provide education, how can that happen?
Okay, the book is that I'm gonna part of the proceed I'm gonna use for donation for the 4 wonderful foundations that are working with the hostage community. That is the Foley Foundation, Hostage USA, Hostage A Worldwide, and the Bring Our Family Home campaign. So part of the proceed in the pre-market of the book is going to be used there. I'm going to ask the people to help me to promote it, because part of it's going to be to support these foundations that are advocating for the American citizens. And the second, if somebody wants to hire me for speaking, I today have a speaking that is called From Captivity to Freedom. I'm going to do 2 speaking gigs, one in Dallas in 1 week. Then I'm going to be in Austin in 2 weeks. And I'm going to be in the United Nations in 3 weeks. So anything. I decided to convert a speech to help others how you can overcome adversity and build up resilience in your life. This is something that is universal. So I decided to convert my thing in captivity, going back to freedom, to overcome adversity and overcome the trauma. So anybody that's hearing me that want to contact me for that event, I can do it, because this is something that really is going to bring hope. It's going to bring strength. It's going to bring resilience. It's a message of love, of hope, and faith. My motto today is never give up, never lose the faith, because I never give up and I never lose my faith. I really truly believe that I was gonna come back. So I'm using now my proof of life to help others. So these are the two things. One, I'm gonna be promoting the book because I'm gonna be supporting these foundations. So I want please the people to really help me, because this is gonna be to support these foundations. And the second, that if somebody wants to hire me for the speaking gigs, it's gonna be related to that, from captivity to freedom, a message of hope, love, and faith. This is what I can help. And the other thing, I decided to create a program in my coaching program. I decided to include coaching that is called risk assessment for traveling abroad, because this is something that I was not aware, but I couldn't, because I decided to create a program to help companies, help people that travel abroad. Because I'm in Houston. Houston, there are a lot of companies working abroad. So this is a way also that I'm going to be helping, and that giving like assessment before anything happening. Something wrong happened, the same thing. Because I went through that. So I had to do something meaningful that can be useful to others to help them. So that's basically that.
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, you think about we are in a global economy, and there is so much traveling back and forth, and it makes me wonder, as you were saying about this coaching program, how many companies that are non-government agencies have that type of training for those who are traveling?
None of them. LaWanna, when I say the thing that God put you, I did my career. At some point, I was the expat coordinator of PDVSA. So I deal with a lot of expats, because when I was the other side of the fence, we did a lot of joint venture with a British company, Italian, French, blah, 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 a lot of international company. So I was always dealing with expats. Expats always have problems because they don't know the laws, they don't know the culture. So they make, but this is something bigger. This is something that's bigger. This is something totally new. So how many companies? None of them are aware, because this is something that the people really are not aware. The one of the 60 Americans that we have in our campaign, I can tell you almost 80% were businessmen. They were in business trips, they were in summit, they were in conference, and this happened to them. This can happen to any regular person. Any person that is traveling for business and that's in international assignation can go through this situation. That's why I said, oh, this is something big. I created now this new program that I incorporated. It's called, it's a risk assessment for travel abroad. I'm putting outside in the market now, because it's something that really is meaningful. It's really meaningful. The people really are not aware of this situation.
No, I think it's very important. And, even though the numbers, comparatively speaking, are small, one is too many. When
it happens, is a catastrophe. And in a company, when that's happened with one of their employees, can you imagine the CEO of a company going through this situation, or a VP or whatever? It becomes big, because it can be a big impact for the company. So it's not only that it could be one, it's the type of the tenor of the person that can happen this.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the work that you're doing is just remarkable. Again, the speaking, the advocacy, the collaboration and unity that you're creating among the families, not just here in the U.S., but abroad. The work that you're going to be doing with the UN. your book that is coming out, the coaching program, risk assessment for traveling abroad, the training that you were
The
putting
movie that
together.
I'm working with a producer that he's preparing a docu-series. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah,
I'm,
you,
I'm,
lots happening. You're
I
busy.
am
You got a lot of
multitasker.
balls
I
in the
do a
air.
lot of things. I have my time busy doing things.
But it's wonderful, and I hate that you had to go through that experience. I'm blessed that you and the others survived it, and you're able to share and help others become aware. And for those who didn't return, who we've lost, let's not forget them and their families here who are still trying to deal with either, like you said, the unknown. Are they
Oh yeah,
still alive, or knowing that they'll never come home again?
yeah. Today, the law that is the law that is the umbrella for the hostage situation is that Robertson Levinson Act. In the name is because that guy disappeared. His body never was found, and in honor of him, has his name.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on Choose the Challenge. I look forward to your book being released, because we have our other show which promotes authors and their amazing experiences on Power of the Pen. So to our listening audience, stay tuned, because we'll be advertising that on this platform. Jose Angel Pereira Ruimwyk, thank you so very much for joining me on another edition of Choose the Challenge. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope this story inspired you, motivated you to rise up. If you see something and you can do something, help us to promote change in this area and others. There's a lot of people suffering around the world. Our voices matter. You can rise up and you can choose to challenge. And remember one thing that I always say, in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. We'll see you next week for another edition of Choose the Challenge. Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank you. Thank you. Never give up, never lose faith.
Thank you.